Have you ever wondered what language deaf people think in? If this question has ever crossed your mind, you're in the right place. In this video, we're diving into the intriguing cognitive processes that take place in the minds of those who are deaf. Globally, over 1.5 billion people are affected by deafness and hearing loss, with 34 million of these being children. The way they think, the language they use in their thoughts, it's a fascinating and important topic to understand, so stay with us as we delve into the fascinating world of cognition in deaf individuals. Before we dive into the question at hand, it's crucial to understand what it means to be deaf. Deafness is not a one-size-fits-all condition. It ranges from those who are hard of hearing to those who are completely deaf. Think of it as a spectrum. On one end, we have individuals who are hard of hearing. They may struggle with hearing some sounds or conversations, but with hearing aids or other devices, they can typically navigate the world of sound. On the other end of the spectrum, we have those who are profoundly deaf. These individuals cannot process auditory information and often rely on visual and tactile methods of communication. This could be sign language, lip reading, or using written text. A crucial point to note is that the communication methods used by deaf individuals can vary greatly. It's not just about sign language. Some may use spoken language, especially if they became deaf later in life or if they've been trained in speech. Others may rely on written language or lip reading. Each individual's deafness is unique, shaped by a multitude of factors such as the degree of hearing loss, the age when they became deaf, their upbringing, and their personal preferences. It's a complex tapestry that requires understanding and empathy. Now that we understand the spectrum of deafness, let's explore the mind of a deaf person. How does language shape our thoughts? And how does this apply to deaf individuals? To begin, we must understand that language is more than a communication tool. It is a cognitive framework that influences our perception, memory, and thought processes. Cognitive scientists and linguists have long debated the relationship between language and thought, leading to two primary schools of thought. The first, known as linguistic determinism, suggests that the language we speak determines the way we think and perceive the world around us. For instance, if a language has numerous words for different shades of blue, its speakers are more likely to distinguish between these shades than speakers of a language with fewer blue-related terms. The second perspective, cognitive universalism, posits that our cognitive processes are universal, and language merely reflects these processes rather than shaping them. Both theories offer fascinating insights into the interplay between language and thought. Now let's consider how this relates to deaf individuals. Deafness and hearing loss affect over 1.5 billion people globally, with 430 million experiencing disabling hearing loss. Many of these individuals rely on sign language as their primary mode of communication. So, if language does indeed shape thought, can we assume that thinking in sign language differs from thinking in spoken language? Research indicates that it might. Studies have shown that deaf individuals who use sign language often think in sign. This inner signing can mediate memory in deaf individuals, much like inner speech does in hearing individuals. This revelation is not merely academic. It has profound implications for our understanding of thought processes and cognitive diversity. It underscores the need for inclusive educational strategies that respect and leverage the unique cognitive frameworks of all learners, including those who communicate through sign language. So, language plays a significant role in our thoughts, but what happens when the usual mode of language is absent? As we delve further into the world of deafness and language, we'll explore this question in greater depth. Contrary to popular belief, deaf people do not hear their thoughts in a spoken language. They think in sign language. This might seem unusual to those of us who are used to communicating and thinking in spoken languages, but for many deaf individuals, sign language is their primary means of communication, and it naturally extends into their thought processes. Let's consider an anecdote from a deaf individual which will help illustrate this point. Imagine a deaf person who has been using sign language since childhood. When they think of a dog, they don't hear the word dog in their mind. Instead, they visualize the sign for dog. Their thought process is entirely visual, not auditory. This phenomenon is known as inner sign language. Just like hearing individuals have an inner voice, deaf individuals have an inner sign. It's a cognitive process where they visualize sign language in their mind's eye. This is particularly interesting because it shows how our brains can adapt to different forms of communication. Research supports this phenomenon too. Studies have shown that deaf individuals who use sign language often think in sign language. They picture the signs in their mind rather than hearing words. This is a testament to the flexibility of human cognition. Our brains are capable of thinking in the language that we use most often, whether that's a spoken language or a signed one. It's also important to note that this isn't the case for every deaf individual. The way one thinks can be influenced by numerous factors, including when they became deaf, their level of hearing loss, and the type of communication they were taught. Some deaf individuals who learned spoken language before becoming deaf may still think in that language. But for those who primarily communicate through sign language, thinking in signs is a natural extension of their daily communication. Thinking in sign language, thus, is a unique cognitive process. But what does this mean for the brain? Let's delve into this in our next scene, where we explore the concept of neuroplasticity and how it relates to deafness. The human brain is a fascinating organ, capable of adapting to various circumstances. This is evident in the brains of deaf individuals. Our brains are not static entities, but dynamic systems that change and adapt throughout our lives. This phenomenon is called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity refers to the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. This flexibility allows the brain to compensate for injury, disease, or changes in the environment. When it comes to deafness, neuroplasticity plays a significant role. The brain's auditory cortex, which typically processes sound, doesn't receive the same input in deaf individuals. But instead of remaining idle, the auditory cortex gets repurposed. It starts to process visual and tactile information, enhancing these senses in the absence of hearing. But the brain's adaptability goes beyond sensory processing. Deaf individuals often develop unique cognitive abilities. For instance, they might have improved peripheral vision or faster visual processing speeds. They might also be more proficient at spatial tasks, like remembering where objects are located. However, this neural adaptation is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it demonstrates the brain's remarkable capacity to compensate for sensory loss. On the other hand, it may have implications for cognitive health. Some research suggests that the cognitive changes associated with deafness could potentially impact cognitive decline and dementia. For instance, the additional cognitive load required to process visual and tactile information could potentially strain the brain, making it more susceptible to cognitive decline. Alternatively, the brain's enhanced visual and spatial abilities might offer some protection against cognitive decline. The relationship between deafness, neuroplasticity, and cognitive health is complex and still not fully understood. But it's clear that deafness does more than affect an individual's ability to hear. It reshapes the brain in unexpected ways. So, deafness can lead to cognitive changes, but what does this mean for our understanding of human cognition? It challenges us to rethink our assumptions about the brain, showing us that it's far more adaptable and versatile than we once thought. And it underscores the importance of inclusivity and accessibility in all aspects of life, reminding us that different experiences can lead to unique cognitive abilities. Our exploration leads us to a new understanding of the human mind. We've ventured into the complex world of cognition and language, discovering how intricately they're intertwined. And in this journey, we've uncovered a perspective that's often overlooked: the unique cognitive experiences of deaf individuals. Deafness, a condition affecting over 1.5 billion people worldwide, presents us with an intriguing question about the nature of thought. If thinking is often associated with an inner voice, how is this process experienced by those who've never heard a spoken word? The exploration of this question has led us to a fascinating insight: the diversity of human cognition. We've discovered that deaf individuals, depending on their level of deafness and training, may think in sign language or vocal language. It's a testament to the adaptability of the human brain that it can create an inner dialogue in sign language, a form entirely different from spoken words. This inner sign language mediates memory in deaf individuals, much like how inner speech does for hearing individuals. So, what's the takeaway from all this? It's the realization that human cognition isn't a one-size-fits-all phenomenon. It's as diverse as the individuals experiencing it, shaped by a myriad of factors, including something as fundamental as our sensory experiences. So next time you wonder what language deaf people think in, remember, their cognitive world is as rich and complex as ours, just experienced differently. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos. Until next time, remain curious.